welcome. We're so pleased you're all here. My name is Beth Moore. I'm the chair of the Police Oversight Board here in Albuquerque. We'd like to welcome all of you who are out of town. We'd also like to welcome those of you from the community who have come to be a part of this discussion. We're delighted that you're all here. As you figured out, you're divided up into talking circles, sort of talking ovals. We are going to break it into some discussions in just a few minutes, and don't worry about the protocols. You'll get all the instructions you need in order to make this be a good conversation. For those of you who aren't familiar with the City of Albuquerque model, we have two halves to our model. We have the Police Oversight Board and we have the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. We started out in 2001, essentially, with our first oversight commission. And I was an investigator, actually, for that commission for a few years, and then went on to bigger and better things. And in the interim, we had the Department of Justice join us here in Albuquerque to help us solve some of our problems. And as a result, we have two new offices which are reconstituted from that original system. We have the Police Oversight Board and we have the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. One of our first jobs as board members was to get training and also to find an executive director to be the permanent leader of the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. We considered that one of the most important accomplishments we've had so far. Our selection was Mr. Ed Harness, who's going to be joining us in just a second. And he took the helm of that agency and is leading us in a direction with which we're very happy. We're not always happy with the progress. We wish that this were going faster. We wish that the police department was a better partner with us at times. But we are moving and we're all going together, even if it's kicking and screaming. But I'd like to introduce Mr. Harness now to take the podium.
Thank you, Chair Moore. My name is Edward Harness. I've been in Albuquerque for 11 months now. And as she said, I am the director of the Civilian Police Oversight Agency. We have 4 investigators. We have a data analyst, Dr. Verplu is here. We have a senior administrative assistant. And we have a community engagement specialist at our agency. We average about 250 civilian complaints that we investigate per year. We also review officer-involved shootings and serious uses of force. We had a big backlog that we had to clear up after the transition, and we're working on doing that. And we're also working on clearing up the backlog of the officer-involved shootings. As Chair Moore said, we have been in transition for quite a while here, and we think we're now rolling and making some very positive changes and getting a better collaborative relationship with the Albuquerque Police Department. To move our discussion forward today, though, I would like to introduce our Community Engagement Specialist, Ms. Amanda Bustos.
Everybody, my name is Amanda Bustos, and I just want to thank everybody for taking some time out of their Sunday to be here to have these discussions together as a group. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist. It is a new position within our oversight agency, and one of our goals is to really reach out and build strong partnerships with community members as well as community organizations. And I just want to go ahead and take a minute to introduce our facilitators really quick. And there will be a facilitator in each circle. Gia, would you like to introduce the facilitators?
Be careful of the attachment.
All right. Okay. So my name is Gia Irlando. I'm from the Office of the Independent Monitor in Denver. I am the Community Relations Ombudsman for that office. Really excited to see this huge crowd today. In each of the circles are facilitators. The one in the back I'll be working with, And then Brian Core from Cambridge, Massachusetts is here, and he'll be working with this group. And Dawn Reynolds, there she is. Thank you, Dawn. Dawn's from Salem, Oregon. So we look forward to helping you out with this conversation.
Okay, I don't know how to take the mics off, but we'll go with the flow. Thank you. Okay, so now that we know who our facilitators are for each of our circles, I would like to introduce Mapia Black Elk. Mapia, where are you, Mapia? Oh, there he is. Mapia will be introducing talking circles, what they are, what are the rules of them, and why they're important for building, strengthening and building communities and through the healing process. So I'll turn the mic over to Mapia. Thank you.
Thank you. Hamatakiapi, Betu Washte, Mapia Black Elk Machiapi, Chante Washte na Petruisapilo. Good afternoon, my relatives. My name is Mapia Black Elk, and I greet you with a good heart. I am Lakota and Chicano. I grew up here in Albuquerque from Los Duranes, and currently work at the Native American Community Academy. And previously, I've done work with First Nations Community Health Source for homeless outreach. And when I was asked by Amanda to come up and talk about talking circles, I was a little bit, I was like, well, who am I to talk about anything? So now we're switching mics. Sorry. Anyhow, and I just wanted to say that, these conversations that we're going to have, they're good, and it's good that our community comes together, and I welcome all the guests who are from out of town. But a talking circle isn't just a talking circle, it's also a healing circle. It's an opportunity for those who have their stories that need to be heard, to have that place to be heard. And it's an opportunity for those to listen to other people's stories, and to reciprocate that relationship. And so I was reminded of a story that a friend was telling me about a class that he took once, where the professor stood up in front of the class, held up a book, and he said, "What color is this book?" And everyone in the class said, "Red." He says, "No, it's not red." And then he turns the book around and it's black. And the point is that sometimes we all have a different perspective. We have different experiences, different truths to ourselves that we all need to express. And by coming together and doing this in a circle, we bring our thought and everything equally. And so basically where we go from here is that in each circle, we have the opportunity to set protocols for each group. This isn't a top-down approach saying, these are the rules, these are what you have to do. This is something that we have to decide together. And so, protocols may be, whoever has the ball, that's their time to talk. And it's everyone else's time to listen. And likewise, once you pass that ball along, it's your time to listen. So I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. I think it's a good thing that we're coming together to have these conversations to heal our community. We have lots of different experiences, and it's good to hear those. So thank you all very much, and I hope we have a good day.
Okay, thank you, Mapia. That was great. Are all of our facilitators in these circles right now? If you are, raise your hand, please. Great. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get your circles started. If you have any questions, I will be here, Ed will be here as well, as Chair Moore will be here as well. So let's get started. Thank you guys again for coming.
So you're not behind the screen?
How about if we just move the two chairs and start right where the two chairs are?
Okay, that's a great idea.
I didn't have the,
No, that was good.
I didn't have the ball.
That was good. Yeah.
This all around is a talking piece, and as we heard, so that whoever has that piece is speaking, and then as it's passed on, that person listens and the next person speaks if they choose. So I think that I will propose as the first norm, but I want to ask people just, are there other norms that anyone would like to propose for a group that will help us to have a safe, healing conversation? Any suggestions from our circle? Yes, please.
Hearing impaired, probably not the only one. No microphone. Going to ask that everybody speak clearly and slowly and loud.
So that everyone speak clearly and loudly so that everyone can hear, because not everyone can hear as well.
Time limit?
That
Thank you.
we respect each other's time. Recognize we have 45 minutes and more than 45 people.
Really think really hard about pointing assault weapons at people that they know are experiencing schizophrenia. I don't think that's rocket science.
All right. Thank you.
Actually, I have one more. Obviously, everyone may have different views on certain things. These are touchy subjects. So if it gets to be too much, recognize it in yourself and just maybe remove yourself, take a $5 and come back, because these are touchy subjects. And so just being aware of ourselves.
So was everyone over here able to hear that?
Be aware of yourself.
Be aware of yourself and take care of yourself.
Yes.
Along with that is, if you're the listener, being respectful of the speaker at the time by not interrupting or exaggerating.
So did everyone hear that? If you're listening, to listen respectfully and to listen and not interrupt, and to not interrupt with your body as well as not interrupting with your voice. Anything else? Well, I think we'll move into the conversation part, and our topic for this circle is ideas for effectively improving civilian oversight. So ideas for how we can make civilian oversight of law enforcement more effective for our communities, ourselves, and our police. And in circle fashion, I will just begin to pass this to my left.
Take them out from the street. Yes, homeless people with mental illness, they need that get in the hospital. It's right here in New Mexico, we got only one hospital in Las Vegas. So anyway, so I can go on and on. Well, system needs to be, system is such corrupt.
I think my understanding of part of the circle process is that by going around, it really invites everyone to speak, so people don't have to feel that they have to kind of, yes, I want to speak. So, but thank you.
I'm a local resident of Albuquerque, and I've been going to police involved meetings for about 4 years now. And I've looked at the situation. I'm a community activist in the sense that I have no office that I hold or any position within the community. But I have an interest. I've met the victims' families, and I've gone to many city meetings that include both police, victims, and oversight, the oversight agency that we have. I think oversight starts at the beginning of the process. I think it starts with who we hire and who makes the decision when we hire for police, all the way from the chief on down. So I think the community has to be a part of that. And there are models out there for that. Milwaukee has a model that gives power to the community to actually hire the chief, or at least approve the hiring of the chief, and to discipline officers as well. So I think that my important point is that I think is that oversight begins at the front end of the process. And unless we do something about who we hire for police, how we train them, how we equip them, and do that at the beginning, and I think the model for a policeman ought to be a teacher as opposed to an occupier. So that's my sense is that if you get better a better start in this process with who you hire and what you do, how you set the tone.
Every officer
the oversight is less than
it shouldn't just be a crisis intervention team that gets called in 20 minutes later. I think every officer needs adequate training in psychology and how to deal with who are mentally ill and having mental breaks.
When they withdrew the funding, the problem didn't go away. I think we spent a lot of time not in my community. I think there needs to be a way.
Mi nombre es Rosalía Sosa. My name is Rosalía Sosa. Venimos una delegación de la República Dominicana. Vinimos la delegación de la República Dominicana, dos organizaciones de la sociedad civil. We come as a delegation from the Dominican Republic, organizations, civil society organizations. Y el director general de la Policía Nacional de la República Dominicana. And we have with us the Director General of the
You have too many conversations going on.
Yeah, maybe. And also we have with us the Director General of the National Police of the Dominican Republic. Vinimos a aprender de ustedes. We came to learn from you. Esperamos llevarlos a nuestros países no es una buena experiencia. And we hope to take to our country a very good experience.
Yeah, they got closer. Back home.
Yeah, I think we really need to
Get closer to.
absolutely.
My name's Bob Best. I'm from Spokane, Washington, and I just jotted down a couple of ideas. Our organization has been involved with civilian oversight for about 14 years now, and for about 12 of those years, it's just been a bunch of people getting together, reviewing a couple cases. And the community came forward to us and said, we got to be doing a better job. So we kind of took that to heart, and in keeping with the focus of what we're doing, the most important thing that we found was educating the community and law enforcement with exactly what we're doing. In order to do that, we had to redo our whole entire bylaws and look at ourselves from within. So that was a starting point. The next thing that we did was we brought in a national consultant and utilized her for a peer review of our organization and the things that we wanted to do. Once we had those things identified, we came up with 18 talking points, and from there, that's what we're working on, or been working on for the past 2 years. The other thing that was important was a community forum and inviting stakeholders from within the community, from all of these different interest groups, so they saw that we were genuine in what we were trying to do, and that was vested in that process. And you know, transparency was another thing. With these bylaws, we made our meetings open; they weren't closed, so the public could see everything that we were doing. And then the most important thing was making sure that the people that surrounded us were passionate about that process and were involved and invested. So those are the things that we're working on.
What was your organization?
I work on the civilian oversight of law enforcement for Spokane. It's a community board.
That's not going to solve the problem. So we'll see how well this new department works out just in there for a few months. But I think it's a good start, maybe a good model. If you Google Department of Homeland
Okay, my name is Samia Assad. I'm staff at the
see
Center
what
for
they're
Peace and
doing, I
Justice.
think they have some very good ideas.
Oh, I like the bar. I like the 18 points. The 18 points. For one, I'd like to see a little more community engagement.
yes, to your oversight committees. From an activist perspective, and especially as a Muslim American, I'm wondering how cultured you are, or more knowledgeable you are of different cultures, ethnicities, and how effective you are in relating that
necessary for this conversation.
to different
One of the things I heard that was
officials.
that
So that's my point.
properly trained officers.
Hi, I'm Willie Bird. I'm the Police Commissioner from Detroit. You know, one of the things I want to do is basketball body cameras.
So what we've done here
That was a lot of this budget, a hot topic last year about body cameras. So that's why I wanted to hear more about body cameras and also about tasers, and hear from so many of you all from other cities and states to see how that process is working. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joseph Floor. I'm just a citizen here in Albuquerque. This is brand new to me. This is my first exposure to any type of civilian oversight. But one of the trends that I think that I see is that I find very disturbing is that everything seems to be focused more on complaints than it is on compliments. And I find that very, very distressing. I think there has to be emphasis on individual responsibility, what I, as a civilian, am a member of the public, am expected to do in interaction with the police. How do I take personal accountability, and how do we make sure that that personal accountability is shared across the community? I mean, in my perspective, the police are here to support us, defend us, protect us. Okay, and I realize that complaints are part of the process, but even in the literature, I would rather see compliments first and efforts to build up community relationships than tear down. Just my first impressions.
I've heard of it. I heard of it in
I'm from Gary, Indiana. I remember for a number of years. And one thing I know is it's really kind of surprising that this is on the front end, because in a couple of days, all of us will probably have some idea of what we feel is necessary to address the very question that we're talking about now. And much of this depends on the community that you're from. One size does not fit all. I live in a county where of all the various municipalities in that county, none of them are the same, quite frankly. And like I said, I represent Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana is not like East Chicago, Indiana, nor is it like Hammond, Indiana, or so on and so on. We all have some of the same ideas, but in some instances, you need something that's statutory, which the commission that I'm on represents. But you also, we're talking about another civilian agency that will encompass some other things. And this organization gives a myriad of ideas. And by Thursday, everybody here will have some more ideas that we could have had on the front end.
Actually given interaction with a person that works in those areas.
I'm
So
Julie Ramos.
instead of arresting them, this person has the
co-chair
option
of
to go
Citizen Review Committee.
into a treatment facility.
And
that is the way
I
that
think
they will
a couple of
address
things for improving. One is to give civilian oversight bodies some teeth, so that they actually have some authority and to do something, to keep it public. Right now in Portland, we're kind of having a fight about keeping our committee open to the public and allowing public input. And the other thing somebody already mentioned was just engaging all the various communities, because there's just not one community that's affected by this. And each community has their own particular issues perhaps, and so making sure we're really aware of all of these.
Okay. I'm Albuquerque, and I actually chair the community policing council.
Hi, I'm Stacy. I'm originally from Michigan. I've moved down here to Albuquerque. I'm currently serving on the Northeast Community Policing Council. So this is new to me. I've only been on it for a few months, but
I'm glad our council are in, because I've been advocating that we need a triage center. Yes, your police officers need to understand that they have a mental situation, but they need to be able to take that
So
person
I'm
to one
looking
place
for helping with
that they
solutions.
can get
You know,
help.
getting everybody to
Right
work
now,
together.
our police officers are required, okay, we're like on maps, or I go over here, or I go over there.
My name is Jeffrey Abdullah. I'm a student at Highlands University of Social Work. I did my bachelor's next semester. I like to consider myself a human rights activist, right? And also a member of the Muslim community here. I'm also a member of Black Ops. Right? And I can see a gentleman that says, you know, where are the compliments and everything, but a lot of members from my community, we're asking for like police accountability. Because like how can we even step to like even a healing process if they're not even held accountable for the actions and crimes committed against African Americans and other persons of color? Like we're really needing that. Because like if you look, everybody here, I don't see one other person from my neighborhood except for one other person. All right? I don't see nobody from my neighborhood here. I didn't see nobody here come to our neighborhoods and ask us to participate. Actually, I got sent to this from one of my comrades, one of my beautiful people from the university. So where's my people at? Because I see a lot of people from the other states and cities and counties. This is Albuquerque. We're having people gunned down too. So my question is how can we have a relationship and establish accountability so then we can hold ourselves for accountability? Because if we see this coming from the law enforcement, I could go into my neighborhood and ask these brothers and sisters like, hey, let's hold it down. But they're holding it down too. But we need police accountability, and that's real. You can't deny that. You know what I mean? We can say all types of compliments, whatever, but those compliments don't mean nothing to us in our neighborhood when our people are continuing getting gunned down. And this is a sensitive topic. So let's start talking.
It is a lot of homelessness, but they're trying to get more set up education plans for the homeless as well, so they can be educated.
Go ahead.
My name is Marcia and I represent the city of Pittsburgh, Office of Municipal Investigations. I am a detective, so it's very interesting hearing what you all as a community people have to say in your twist as far as current police shootings and stuff. It's tough being on this side of it, being African American as well as law enforcement. So I'm open and just want to hear what you have to say as far as your perspectives on current shootings and stuff like that.
So my name is Sabrina Montoya, and I'm a social worker in the community in LMSW. I'm also an MST therapist, and I work with the most troubled youth in Valencia County. And Valencia County has a lot of its own struggles as far as lack of services, access, continuity of care. And so the county that I work in has many systemic issues that are going on. But there are solutions, and I know that that's what we're here to discuss. I don't know who's running this group, but I'd like to get some information to whoever is running the group. It's about community policing. It's a different approach to policing. It's a different approach to dealing with community members and individuals. It's working with the community, having a systemic change, getting in the neighborhoods, learning the people, knowing them by name, being invested. Instead of approaching these people with like stop and frisk or racially profiling. How about how's your day going? Can we have a conversation? And really changing that approach. I have a few more handouts for anyone that might be interested in what community policing is. In Nebraska, this is from Nebraska, they are one of the longest organizations that has done it. And it has been around for many years. It is an approach that doesn't happen overnight. It is, I'll get you yours. And anyone who wants more, you can contact me after and I'll get you your email and send it to you. But it is an approach that takes years. It's changing the infrastructure, it's changing the mindset of the officers that are working in the community. It's not the power struggle. It's let me get to know you. I'm here to help you. What are in the needs of the community? I'm invested. I care. It's not an us versus them. It's not a fear-driven way to approaching policing. It's a community approach. It's working together. It's caring about where you're working and the people that you are working with. It is something that needs to change. It's not just an approach. It's a systemic change on all levels that has everybody being accountable. Not just the officers, but the community members. And taking a step, getting to know the law enforcement, wanting to work together, bringing ideas to the table and saying, you know, when these things happen, this is why we have no faith in the police department. When nobody is being prosecuted for these deaths of these African American brothers and sisters, that is not okay. Accountability on every level. A systemic change is what's needed. Thank you for your time.
My name's Russell. I'm police oversight for the San Francisco area.
I'll keep this short and sweet. My name is Joe. This is actually my very first time being part of anything as far as activist in a community situation, and I'm here for our children, for my son. My son is not biracial, he's multiracial, and I think about these things now. I am finally realizing that we need to start creating some solutions and quit making excuses on what's going on in our communities. And my son, although he be at 6 years old right now, what's going to happen in 10 years if we allow these things to continue? So as a newbie in this group, I am anxious to find out what I can do, not just in my community, but in my city, in my town, and help with all in every area as being an advocate and an activist for the sake of our children.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just was asked to. This person you see, she's translating for about 15 people here. So usually either if the person with the ball can also hold the microphone or can talk, so she can right next to her.
To take a look at those contacts and make sure that what the officers aren't doing is essentially keeping homeless people in a loop of the criminal justice system, which doesn't serve to provide them any help or really give them the types of resources that can be helpful in any long-term way.
My name is Lori Watson from Indianapolis. I'm on the oversight agency there, and just want to tag a lot of things that have been said. Our officers are getting CIT training as they go through the class that started 2 years ago. So as you move a ship around, it's going to take a long time to move a ship, like you said.
Thanks very much. My name is Israel Kamanyano. I'm from South Africa. I'm heading one of the oversight bodies, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, established 1997 after the apartheid regime.
They can have a number that they call back, and we can refer to that number.
I've got 3 issues with regards to the topic itself.
We have some expectations about your interaction.
The first one,
We may not be able
the
to meet
civilian
them
oversight
yet,
bodies
but we're going to be
must have enough powers to hold the police accountable. If we don't have that, there will be a problem. The second issue, but that has to be done through legislation policies. The second issue is the collaboration between the community, the police, and the civilian oversight bodies, which talks to your relationships and good corporations between those three. And lastly is your community involvement. where you will have your functional or effective community policing forums as well as your safety police forums.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is
Good morning, my name is Orison Olivense.
it's unfortunate that, I mean, the entire war on drugs has driven police and public relations apart. But I think there have been, I mean, personally with my background, I'm working on my degree in criminology at UNM, and I'm working with this group, SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and we work with mutual exchange programs. And we were actually looking at a program in Toronto, and I think they're opening one in Seattle called safe injection sites for addicts to, I mean, the opiate crisis is only getting worse, and a lot of our homeless are opiate addicted, and I think that somewhere like a safe injection site where they could go be medically supervised while they're using, and also access resources to get help instead of having it mandated by courts or something when they're already in the criminal justice system. I think that mandating it through the criminal justice system is not the way to actually get anybody help, but sites where somebody can actually go and feel comfortable and feel safe to get help would make a huge difference in the addiction crisis.
My name is Todd Kirsting. I'm for the Community Police Council member for the Southeast. The one thing I look at as well is to look at peeling away one area, maybe before people might become homeless, is kids, teenagers not getting addressed before they get out into the public. So that would require continuing educating parents.
It's still currently class Wayne County. Detroit and Wayne County. The issue is, you talked about, you're absolutely correct about police officers living in the community. In Detroit Police Department, we have neighborhood, they call neighborhood police officers, who just, actually our department is 75% of those in the department live outside the city. Of course, the state of Michigan abolished residency back some 14 years ago, so thus all the police could move out the city. I've always lived in the city. I'm from the city. Lived basically in my district now, that I represent. But police officers residing in the cities and the community makes a big difference. Okay, not just this 8-hour thing. And you talked about the fact that transparency is so important, but your police chiefs will only tell you what they want you to know. Believe me, I know they'll tell you what they want you to know, what they think that you want to hear. And then the issue of accountability. And then some of them say that, quote unquote, that they're transparent, but the most important thing behind the transparency is the accountability, which comes into play with your civilian oversight too. You have to demand the transparency, but then it's on us too to hold them accountable, and the accountability to follow up. If you find out officers have done things, and then you look into the department, what has the department done to discipline them or training? That hasn't happened. So that's so important. But all across America, it's the same thing. And it's interesting that we always use that term, policing, particularly when it comes to the communities, not only the so-called communities of color, one might say, and those who have, I think someone said, the haves and the have-nots, and as the elders in the South used to say, they ain't gonna get. Have-nots, and you ain't gonna get it. But they use the terminology of policing instead of serving that particular community. I liken myself in 40 years as a peace officer. Sure, I had to make arrests and things like that, but most oftentimes I knew people, and believe it or not, the people who came to my aid when I was in trouble were people who I had locked up. So there was a relationship there was communication. You know, people who saved me in the middle of the night sometimes when I was by myself, particularly when I was in Atlanta working by myself, were individuals who I had arrested. So it's about communication, it's about the human spirit, it's about treating people with humanity. Even though you have to do a job of, you know, sometimes arresting folks, but you have to respect everyone. So the key thing is that police officers, and I don't know what your state laws say, you know, in terms of residency, but it does make a difference. That they just don't go home at the end of the day, you know, and you really get to know the citizens in your community and also your city when that occurs. But like I said, they are the cheerleaders of the police someone talked about. They're very identifiable. So, but these civilian review boards or commissions such as ours, you need to have power and you need to be independent of the police chief and the mayor. You need to be independent of the police chief, and you can look at what has happened with some of these commissions around the country, particularly Chicago, where they call and they march in some of these cities for the commission to just step down and resign. Because, I mean, what good are you? So when you look at what happened most recently this week in North Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina. You know, originally when that happened, a young man was killed. The chief and the mayor said they're not going to release the video. And when I first saw that, I said, "Oh, really? It's just a matter of time. It's going to happen soon," and it did. 2 days later, they released it to the family members and the attorneys. Let them view it. I think the other day they released the video. So, and it's the powers to the people. When the people organize, their mayors, police chiefs, your governors will have to respond when the people turn out on the street. It's just unfortunate sometimes it takes, you know, rebellion. And then there are some individuals who are part of that so-called rebellion that are separate from that, who may commit some violent acts. But, you know, when they want to take this type of stance that they're not going to release videos, they're not going to respond to the community, people come together and in the streets, and once that comes up from the grassroots, that type of rebellion, then they're forced to do the things that they should have done in the first place. And that's the total, when you talk about the transparency, they're not really transparent, it's just a word sometimes. Like I said, they tell you what they want you to know or what they think that you will believe. That happens often.
I mean, I'm coming that direction.
You might want to start the queue. I have a feeling I got it quicker than some people.
I'm moving down this side. We stay down here for a minute. Go
Gotcha.
ahead.
So,
we do have to do a time check though, because we have about 10 minutes and we still have to find somebody that'll report out. So we're going to do this quickly.
So I'll try to be fast. I want to piggyback on what you were saying, and several other people here too. So, as I mentioned, I'm from Albany, New York. Not a perfect police department, but we do have a lot of good things happening there. And one of the first things I thought of with your question, improving the relationship, goes beyond the transactional exchanges that police officers and community members have, when it's all built around the prosecution of their duties, or prosecuting people of their duties. I think the interactions need to go beyond that, to have people seeing people, so it's not just cop and community member. So I'll give you an example of one of the things that Albany has done this summer. The police department had what they called pop-ups, which were announced maybe a week ahead of time in different parts of the city, but always in places that would fit what folks describe as underserved, the locations there. And it was shutting down a park or a street and having hot dogs and police officers, hot dogs and hamburgers for people and some waters and stuff. Officers rolling the balls at kids who are playing kickball with them in the streets and laughing and running around together. And then they would, as it got dark, put up a portable movie screen and show a kids movie. So the officers are there interacting with everyone in this kind of capacity. The imagery of just seeing these kinds of folks interacting with each other. Because most of the time when we see images in the media of these kinds of interactions, it's a very, very different kind of interaction. So creating more human moments between people, so you get beyond the titles and the blue and whatever, to actually see each other as people makes a big difference. We had an ICD last in custody death. Tragic, controversial, protest, but it never turned into something that you saw on CNN or anything for a variety of reasons. Well, one is there's so much goodwill that's been built between the police chief and the community. We have community policing. The chief has had monthly meetings to talk about that with people presenting, answering questions with people. He's working on some progressive programs that he's partnered with community activists on to get, so he's got a lot of goodwill in the tank. When you were talking before about police chief that doesn't want to come to the meetings, that sends a spin representative and so forth, I think you can build the best systems in the world that you want, the best practices, resources, whatever. That's just an engine. The fuel, the gas, is the goodwill of someone who cares and who wants to participate in it and is interested in trying to make a difference. If you don't have that, I don't think you can build a system that will create caring where it doesn't exist, that can be functional and produce good things if the fuel is not there of people caring and willing to do services.
Awesome.
That's the kind of thing, but we need to ship them to other states, especially during Christmas, until the other states said, hey, you got to stop this. So what are you going to do? As a city councilor, I'm asking you directly.
And I'd be glad to have that conversation with you. What's your name?
Vernon Butler.
Vernon, after this, you and I should talk.
I'm on my way to a mental health.
So you don't really want to know?
No, I do want to know. I do want to know, and I'll make sure that you have my contact information so that you can tell me what you think is the answer. But I have to go to a mental health meeting.
My phone number's easy, 311. Ask your city council.
You'll see me.
No, I mean.
Give him the name, give me a name. Hey, sir. Give a name, please.
I don't have any one thing specifically because I'm listening. And I hear a whole lot of things. I'm on the civilian advisory board in Spokane, Washington, and I'm the chairman. And we do a whole bunch of things in Spokane, like all of you are doing. So my opinion is I also see we have this organization over here doing this. This organization over here doing this. This organization over here doing this. Why can't we organize those
threatened by people of color, and on the
money,
other side,
funds, and work together instead of, you gotta go see this mental health guy over here. Because that's what I see in Spokane. We have an outfit that, what they love to do is they give everybody all the drugs they want. And they come and they're medicated. And then they send them back out on the street. And we go back and this is cyclical.
about what's going on. How many
The
more
money part
people are
of
going to have to
it,
die
the big piece.
in
There
order for
isn't
us to
money.
come up with a solution?
In our jails in Spokane, the majority of those people in there are all mental health patients. Some of them, the recidivity is, that's where they go, is their safe there. Because they get the drugs, they get that's wrong. That's reverse of what it is. The other thing is, when you look at this, is we have the homeless shelters. And did I hear somebody say warming shelters? We have the warming shelters in the winter, we open them up. You know, when the temperatures get to so, we bring all the people in. We have men over here, we have women over here, for obvious reasons. But at the same time, when it's all done, they close the shelters and away we go. We have homeless shelters that are being built. We have a brand new apartment complex that's being built to house homeless people. So we're trying to do everything. The Spokane has 186,000 people in it, but there's only so much money. And so that's part of it. The part of it is we as citizens have to make that commitment. We as organizations have to make that commitment to work together and organize. And I'll share a personal story. There was a young lady at Christmas time who's been in and out of mental health systems. At Christmas time, she went up on the highway outside of Spokane
So I had an idea that a community event that we did in Baltimore, our civilian review board. I have no suggestions about how to make police more transparent. I'm still working on that myself. But we actually had this event called the Art of Storytelling. I think a lot of times when we think about outreach, it's with adults in mind, and nobody thinks that a kid something with a panel, boring. And so we had this thing called Art of Storytelling, and it was about coming to share your experiences with the police, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we had invited the police, members of the police force to come. Unfortunately, it was the same kind of people who usually are mandated to go to do it right events. Specifically asked for them not to sit together, so they sat in 2 clumps together. And so just giving like some feedback.
About 3 more minutes, folks, 3 more minutes.
What I would not invite the police to that type of event. I think it's important to know sometimes when something is here for the community and something for folks to learn from each other. I thought the community was able to express themselves. There's a lot of people in Baltimore, a lot of leaders, and people express that. Some people told stories, some people played the piano, some people sang, some people rapped, some people, we also had like visual art, so we had like people
What's happened with investigation?
Sir? And then it was actually done with our community mediation program. And so it was a way for the community to express themselves in ways that they normally don't get heard. And so I think for those folks it was beneficial. For the police, unfortunately, their feedback was that they felt like it was police bashing. But again, it wasn't for them. It was an opportunity for the community to express themselves. And so as an idea, that was something I thought was very helpful.
I think this is a great
So I'm Janina, I work with Nick and Gia, the Office of the Independent Monitor in Denver. And as the oversight agency, we both interface with law enforcement as well as the community. So we understand proper police practices, the policies, but also community concerns. Working with families who have been a part of excessive force cases, often involved shootings. So we definitely understand that there is a tremendous amount of mistrust between our law enforcement and particularly communities of color and our low-income communities. And so starting in 2014, Gia developed a program called Bridging the Gap Kids and Cops. Sorry if I got a shout out to those guys. It's called Bridging the Gap Kids and Cops. And this is where we bring youth and officers together for facilitated dialogue in the community. So we have multiple components of that. The first one is we educate officers on adolescent development and de-escalation techniques. So how does this brain work? How can you remember that in your training and your contact with them in the community? And to remember that kids are not operating in their frontal cortex. They're operating from the back of their brains, the fight, flight, or freeze response. And so how is you as the officer able to de-escalate it, take a step back, use a different tone of voice potentially to get that youth to stop thinking from back here to think up here. We also train our community members, and we're talking like activists, folks from real estate, folks from partner organizations, from ACLU to gang prevention. So across the board, folks in our community who are passionate about like, I need something to do that's proactive and that's preventative. And I think that word is key. Is preventative means. And so we have a facilitation series where we train them on basic facilitation skills, also provide them with emotional intelligence, trauma-informed practice, implicit bias. And those are the same workshop components we give officers when we bring the youth and officers together for facilitated dialogues. We educate youth on their rights and responsibilities when in contact with law enforcement. So, you know, even when they're scared, we're like, do not run. That's not okay. We want you to get home safely. And that there are other means, like our office as an oversight agency, that you can turn to as a resource to fight that encounter another day. Because you're not going to win in that moment. It's not. It's always a hard truth to tell them, but also it's just good education on them knowing what their rights are, but how to exercise them safely. In the afternoon, so these are 1-day, 5-hour forums, where in the morning you get their trainings on rights, responsibilities, implicit bias. Officers get training on the emotional intelligence, trauma-informed, implicit bias, positive youth development. Hopefully we'll bring in them being able to identify sex trafficking. And so and then in the afternoon, that's when they're together in these small groups where it's about 7 youth to 1 officer, where it's about the community.
What's that got to do with Albuquerque? What are you talking about?
So, I mean, that's a good point.
Problem.
So
we've got a different situation
Sir,
here.
please, do you have the bulb?
No, I don't have the bulb, but I'm tired of hearing her spout about something that has nothing to do with Albuquerque.
I think, can I just summarize real quick then? So if you guys want to talk later, we can. I think it's just great. One method we found that actually works on building some community trust, where we have people walk away saying, I don't like officers, but Officer Gomez, all right, she's okay. And to us, that's moving mountains.
Thank you.
Okay,
So,
folks, if we can have the facilitators finish up now.
So is there
and
somebody
the
that would like
facilitators
to
come on
report
up.
out for us
We're going to
at the front of
continue
the
this
room?
discussion as an entire group.
That you were
So
gonna
come on up,
report.
facilitators.
That I was going to report? I think that's what she told me. All right. Right on. Maybe not. Thank you all so much. I think this was a good start to a conversation. It definitely did not, fill all of the gaps. And everybody has a different experience in all of their cities, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
30 years ago, visited your country and toured both islands.
Oh, did you?
Had a great time.
Visited the South Island as well. South Island.
Yeah, I went all the way down to, there's another island on the...
Stewart Island.
Yeah, went down there. Yes. And I've hiked Milford Sound.
Oh, nice.
And a whole bunch of things.
Fantastic.
Went to Rotorua and Queenstown and, gosh.
Monica?
Yes.
Yeah,
Old memories.
I go down there skiing every year. It's fantastic.
That's great. You have a beautiful country.
Thank you.
Wherever you're comfortable, if we could get everyone to focus up toward the front of the room. I understand you've had good conversations and you want to continue those conversations, but we also want to hear what's happened in the other circles. So if I could have your attention up here, please. So let's start with, let's get the microphone with the translation microphone.
What's up?
Okay, thank you. We're going to start with the front group. Brian, and he's going to discuss ideas for effectively improving civilian oversight, what was discussed in the talking circle.
All right, good afternoon. We had a large, diverse group. We had people from all over the United States, from the Dominican Republic, from Colombia, and we had people from community members, someone who shared that he had spent many years in prison. We had a police chief. We had a very interesting group. In our conversation, a lot of the focus was really about how can we ensure that oversight has the power and ability to work and to have an impact. And that took many forms. Some of those comments were about having laws in place that allow oversight to have power. Some of those were about having the relationships between community and police so that oversight would have meaning, so that oversight was about the connection between community members and police. A lot of the conversation was also about how do we learn from each other. We have the opportunity when we come together at conferences like this to hear others' experiences and to share and to get ideas from each other. Another piece of it was about our conversation in the circle was about how do we ensure that community members are really part of oversight, are part of accountability, are part of having a seat at the table that, are having a seat at the table that really gives them a voice. And that's everything from policies to when people are killed at the hands of the police. We also heard about some of the challenges that people face, the concerns people face as community members, feeling like they're the only community member in the room from their community, that their community doesn't have a way to get involved, that police don't know what their experiences are, that police don't relate to them, and also that communities need to reach out to police as well. We heard a diversity of voices on that. We also heard about the challenges of educating people, educating police, and educating community members, of looking at training, at making sure that oversight is there from the beginning. It's not something that gets added in after problems occur, but it's something that is seen as part of having policing that's effective and responsive to community needs. And I guess the last piece, because there were a lot of specific things we have up on the wall, was marginalized communities, however you might want to say that. People of color, women, people of different gender identities, sexual orientations, people of different economic backgrounds, but ensuring that all of those people are cared for, are represented in the conversation, and that accountability includes their voices, their needs, and their presence. So I would say we didn't come up with 2 or 3 big answers, but the themes really were about having the ability to have a real meaningful impact, making sure that everybody is engaged, and making sure that everybody, community and police, are treated fairly and with the respect that they all deserve as human beings.
There's always a resource issue, and we got the tablet that has sticky on the back. So first of all, I want to thank our circle. We talked about homelessness and people with mental health challenges. I want to thank my group. It was an honor to be with so many thoughtful, passionate, caring people and all the wonderful ideas that you shared. I think the overall theme was that it's a complex issue. We have to see these people as people, have compassion. It goes a long way. One lady said, the way you eat an elk is one bite at a time. And I thought that, I'm from Idaho, that made a lot of sense to me. But at any rate, we want to look at there were some different cities were doing different things. And again, we heard, Brian, like your group had, that when we go back, especially this group is for people involved in oversight. And you're all here as part of this opening session of our NACOLE conference. So we hope you'll take these ideas and go back to your communities and keep these conversations going. But first of all, they're people, treat them with respect, treat them with kindness, listen to them, and include them in the conversation whenever possible. There's understandably anger because some people, it shouldn't be become a life or death matter when you're having a mental health crisis. It's a medical emergency. We need to treat them like that. We need certainly more jobs and resources for people who are in these situations. Why aren't they homeless? Because they have no housing. We have a lot of, someone pointed out that in their community, I think here in Albuquerque, a lot of vacant buildings, can they be retrofitted? And some of them are state-owned or community-owned buildings. Can they be retrofitted to provide housing? We need housing for people who have alcohol problems. I know in Seattle they have housing for people who are actively intoxicated, so they don't, some shelters won't take them, and it doesn't help anything. One young person pointed out that a needle exchange program should be available, and there should be a safe, supervised place for people with addictions, particularly given the opiate crisis that
there
we
is
have.
a needle exchange.
A needle exchange.
We have one available with Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless and several other places. I work for Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless. We even have a schedule of all the places we hold needle exchange.
Excellent. So those resources need to be available and help folks again treat it like the medical crisis that it is. More community health centers. We talked about the issue of siloing. We have a lot of agencies, a lot of community programs working on these things separately, and we need to find a way to coordinate all of that. We talked about having, I think we got that one. Of course, the crisis intervention training is becoming more popular and more readily available. But even with all those CITs in place in different communities, we still have far too many people who are unhoused or people who are in mental crises being hurt by the police. Showing that, you know, my committee was very global in its thinking, which is, I think, eating that elk one bite at a time. Lots of different programs, all aimed at helping folks who are at every level of our community to help bring them up to be as healthy as they possibly can be and make our communities as a whole healthier. So reducing the stigma of mental illness in our communities, particularly with young people, and show them compassion at an early age and make sure they know where these resources are to sustain things for the solutions for the long time. We will need all of these programs, and they need to be coordinated. We need to look at how we're spending our resources and then prioritize those and see how we can make them more effective and better coordinated. And when we meet people who are unhoused or have mental health issues, to try to meet them where they are and understand them. When Ben pointed out, sometimes they're in their own little world. You need to go into that world for a moment to communicate and be effective. Mental health courts. A person from Spokane pointed out that they started those, I think it was after a young woman she was standing on a bridge with a gun to her head, and it could have ended ugly, as you all know. But instead she was shot in the shoulder, taken in, got stabilized. Stabilization's a huge thing. And now folks in that could go to a mental health court, kind of like our drug courts that we've had in federal and state court for a long time, and get ongoing regular monitoring, checking in, letting people know that you care on a regular basis, making sure you're getting your resources, making sure you're getting healthy, and gradually support that rather than this constant in and out of jail, which is not where folks need to be. 311 and 211. Some of you may know those. They're like 911. What do you do? I mean, I personally, if I'm in a city I don't know well, and I don't want to call 911 if I see someone who's having a crisis, because I know you can't always be 100% sure it's going to end well. And that people should have confidence that they can reach a government agency and that the appropriate response will take place. So we have 211 info sources, and then the 311 was started, it was a couple of cities, was that Avis and Knoxville? But it has to be available 24/7. People can call to get help with housing, counseling, helping pay their electrical bills, all kinds of problems that add up and can be a real crisis for people who are marginalized. Yeah. Oh, yes, and while involving homeless people in these types of events, we didn't have any, well, it doesn't sound ironic, we didn't have any homeless people register for this event. I mean, obviously, we all could, our cities paid for it, or we paid the registration fee, but back in your communities, almost every city with more than 100,000 people has forums on homelessness, and homeless people should be involved in that. How did this, what can we do to help? What are the resources? But they should be part of the dialogue, and can't have that voice that so many of them may feel they've lost. And then reasonable expectations, this is specific to an oversight agency. They come in, they're common complainants because they are an over-policed population, but making clear what you can reasonably do. You can hear them, you can treat them with respect, you will make their concern known. You can't guarantee an outcome, but you can be, in the oversight field, you can be a compassionate, respectful voice in working with these populations. And sometimes, I was told by one guy once that you're the only straight person I talked to, and by straight he meant somebody who had a normal life. And but so you can be that person that will help steer them to those resources and be a respectful listener. So again, thank you to the group without the sticky tablet paper. You were awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so our group was tasked with finding ideas to improve relationships between law enforcement and underserved populations. There was a good discussion about the word underserved as opposed to over-policed, and populations and communities that are generally not served the way that that they could be, that other communities are served, both by the police and in other terms. So there was a decent amount of discussion around inequity in general, but if you actually are talking about policing in terms of populations like communities of color and others, you really are dealing with inequity way above police heads, right? So, you're talking about the militarization of policing in some communities as opposed to, to protect and serve in other communities. I think, I'm not great at this stuff. I'm just trying to put it all together. We have 8 pages. In the bigger picture, I think we found out in our group that there was no automatic fix. There's not a program or an outreach way to create trust in communities that works from one community to another. So there were plenty of people that were not NACOLE people, as well as NACOLE people that had ideas about how you could actually increase that trust, how you could really get to the core of what good policing looks like and why people actually should have more faith in policing. And then independence came up a number of times, that there's a lot of corruption even within systems that are supposed to work for transparency and accountability. And that true independence, independent civilian oversight, looks different in different ways, but in different places, but that it's really at the core of being able to increase that trust and come up with improved relationships between law enforcement and the community. Pretty much, there was a lot of discussion in Albuquerque specific around the chief of police being more accessible and being at more meetings and accessible to people that are actually working on the reform efforts. And I look forward to actually understanding more about the Albuquerque situation. There's really, we could have gone on for a long time when you talk about
what good law enforcement relations with any community looks like, but I think there's a long way to go, and there's going to be conversations like this for many years to come, talking about the inequities that actually create those systems, and trying to serve people from either a law enforcement or an independent civilian oversight position, with the inequities that are historical and have been going on for a really long time. So that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you. Okay, we're getting ready to wrap this meeting up, but I did want to call up Makpia back to the front so that he can give some feedback on the way the talking circles were conducted today, and moving forward, we're looking forward to working with our local Albuquerque community. So, Makpia.
Again, thank you everyone for the opportunity to be here and speak. I know that maybe this talking circle wasn't as ideal as thought, but I think that it's still a step in the right direction. And from sitting where I was at, I did get to see a little bit of both sides, on both sides of me, and it looked like there was some good conversations happening. And so I just wanted to say that for those who were able to speak and give their stories, thank you. And for those that were able to lend an ear and hear that, thank you, because this is a way of healing community, by healing trauma, by allowing people to speak their experiences on it. And I just hope that this is the first of many talking circles to come, and hopefully one that we can maybe break out into larger or more individualized spaces. But either way, I just also wanted to thank everyone who's visitors from out of town. As you might have seen the names of the room, Coach D and Taus. Also, one thing that we should be mindful of is the place and space that we're at, and to acknowledge those whose traditional lands these are. The Pueblos of Isleta and Sandia, and all those that surround us, that this is their traditional homelands, and their ancestors are here with us. And so just want to take the time to acknowledge that, and to thank you all for visiting our beautiful state, and we hope to see you again.
Thank you. For those of you who are from outside of New Mexico, welcome again. We're so glad you're here. For those of you who are Albuquerque and New Mexico residents, please know that these conversations are going to continue. We know that some of you feel like, well, the entire world was here, and yes, that's true. We're kicking off the conference with this big picture where we have feedback from all of our guests from around the world. This conversation is going to continue locally. It's going to continue through the Police Oversight Board. It's going to continue through the Civilian Police Oversight Agency, and also the Citizen Police Committees in the various neighborhoods. We have a brochure from the CPOA that Amanda's holding up here. If you want to grab one of those, we want your continued conversation. I'm going to challenge some of you to come to the police oversight boards that occur the second Tuesday of every month in the downstairs of City Council. We get one or two people, sorry, the Thursday, it's the second Thursday of the month. I managed to show up somehow. We get one or two people showing up, and that's it. That community conversation goes out to the entire community when you come and give public comment and show up at our meetings. We hear it, but also everyone in the community gets to hear it because it's replayed on television. So please come to our meetings, get involved, and let's continue this conversation locally. Again, welcome to everybody. Thank you. I want to introduce Karen Williams with NACOLE.
Hold on 1 second. I wanted to ask, what are you doing to reach out to the community members to ensure their participation in these meetings? I, again, am a social worker here in Albuquerque, and I'm just wondering what's being done. We have one or two participants, but is the knowledge out there? Is the information being conveyed? If it is being conveyed, how is it being dispelled to the community members? Who's going in those neighborhoods?
Great. We just hired Amanda Bustos for the CPOA office. This was a new position was created because we saw the exact need that you're talking about. And Amanda is just getting her feet under her, and you will be seeing lots of her. And so if your ideas to get the message out to the community, please get with Amanda and let her know that, because that is what we want to do. That's what we want to work at. I'd like to introduce Karen Williams with NACOLE, who has some more words for you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I am so delighted to see a full house in here today. I can't tell you how much that warms my heart. I actually have been running around trying to do some conference preparation, so I wasn't able to be in here with you earlier, but I have no doubt, judging by the number of happy faces in here, that we made a lot of progress today. I want to encourage you as the community. We are kicking off the conference this afternoon, and our first session is going to start at 2:45 in this same room. The public is absolutely invited to stay here for that, and the topic of that session is an introduction to NACOLE, its founders, and civilian oversight of law enforcement. So if you came today thinking, I don't really know what this is, but it sounds good, I'd like to see what it's about, I encourage you to stay and see what, we have one of our NACOLE founders, we have several of them here actually today, but one of them will be speaking. We have somebody who's brand new to the oversight agency, or to the oversight world, that will be speaking, and then also our NACOLE Director of Training and Education. So we need to get the room reset for that, so if you would like to stay, I would encourage you, if you would, please get up, exit. We need to reset the room, and you are welcome to come back at 2:45. There is one question in the back from a gentleman that has been waiting.
This is more of a statement.
Yes.
You want us to take this back to the community? Is it possible, I know it's probably an arduous task, it doesn't have to happen today, but is it possible to have these notes taken off the sheets, put on paper, and emailed out or mailed out to the different organizations that are represented here, so that we can take those notes and ideas back with us?
Yes, absolutely. What I will do, because we didn't collect email addresses today, I will go ahead and type all of these notes up, and we will post them on our city website at CP, the City of Albuquerque website under our department, and they will be there for you guys to print out and utilize.